Hello there. In this video, I'm going to talk about insecurities in dating as a man, specifically the ones that I had that kept me up at night, but it turned out they were complete nonsense and didn't matter at all. This is a touchy subject. I just fucking knocked everything. It's a bit of a touchy subject, so I'm going to approach it with a bit of levity because I think some of these are kind of nonsense looking back in as to the degree to which I thought they would affect me and the degree to which they didn't. And I see a lot of this as someone who is coaching guys on dating, as someone who helps coach general self-improvement, which includes, helping guys get more attractive. We see a lot of over-focus on very specific physical insecurities, some not physical as well, personality quirks or like tonality of voice is another one. Stuff that guys are like, is this going to affect me? Is this going to, mean that I can't date successfully, can't get the standard of girls that I want? The message I'm usually trying to get over is that attractiveness is a multifaceted thing. There's so much that goes into it in terms of what makes like you as an overall package, as a person, attractive to girls. Looks, aesthetic, like how you dress, your confidence, your vibe and personality when you are with women, perceived status, perceived wealth, all these things that kind of go into, in the modern era, making you stand out and be considered more attractive. And if you over focus on very specific small insecurities, you can lose sight of, the big picture. Like, how are you coming across? What are girls going to remember about you? What are girls going to spot about you? Not, very specific things, examples of which I'm going to get into. Don't worry, we're getting there. Now, the problem with this is that not all of your insecurities are necessarily like wrong necessarily. And we don't mean that in like you should be over focusing on them. I mean, as in sometimes you are pinpointing things that if you did something about it or you worked on it, if you can work on it, it would actually make a difference. I think a good case in point for most guys, if you're like overweight and you think, oh, if I lose some weight, I will probably do better with women. Yeah, that's true. For me, the big one I remember that I was very insecure about that was going to be on this list, and then I realized no, because I did something about it and it really helped, was tanning. Like, I used to be so insecure about how pale I was, and I got a tan under the recommendations of some of my old self-improvement gurus, and yeah, it massively improved my results and the reactions I was getting when I had more color. And the photos where I have a tan typically perform better than the photos where I don't. So that's one of those areas where I was like, oh, undeniably that has helped me a lot. I can show it with like a nice Venn diagram. So if you are gonna work on like looks maxing, improving attractiveness, all that stuff, not something that Andy and I actually, talk bad upon. We think it's a good idea. Like, we love self-improvement in all areas. I do stylist work, like I help guys improve their aesthetic from a dress sense. So I fully believe in the power of aesthetic and improvements on that kind of area. But I want you to keep in mind this Venn diagram. Your insecurities, things that affect your dating results, and the stuff that actually fucking matters. There's a huge amount of insecurities that don't fucking matter, and that is what we're talking about. There's a huge amount of stuff which does matter that don't fall into your insecurities as well. We find that a lot, that guys have blind spots to a lot of things that would make them instantly a lot more attractive. And then you have the middle ground where the things overlap. The only way you really find out about the attractive stuff and what insecurities are valid, what insecurities you do need to work on, is by talking to guys who have a bit more experience, talking to girls potentially if you want to get female opinion. I'm not against guys doing that. But guys who have done this, guys who have pulled themselves out of bad dating results into good dating results, they tend to know what's up and what works and what to be focusing on. And that's what we offer as well when me and Andy do coaching, is we are doing it from experience. All of our coaches are doing it from experience. Like, we've seen what works, not just in ourselves, but over tons of guys. So let's move into my own stories. I want to talk about the first insecurity because this is related to what sparked this video. Someone was asking me whether or not, well, they weren't asking me, they were asking a group that I'm in about whether or not a skin rash was going to be a problem on a date they were going on. Specifically, I think they had gym rash on their legs or arms or something. And they were worried that when they got down to it, when they took their clothes off, the rash was going to be a problem. I'm not sure how bad it was, but I responded to this saying that, hey, don't worry about this. I have psoriasis. And I used to get this really, really badly. When I was at university, when I was at college, I used to get scaling from psoriasis, like really bad on my legs, on my arms. Sometimes I still get it in my fingers now to this day. Although nowadays I have figured out treatment for it. And so whenever I get an outbreak, I can go and get the treatment, get it fixed up really nice. But when I was like 19 and still a virgin and trying to like start dating and start talking to girls and get experience, I at the same time had to deal with this massive skin problem that just started happening to me, and I'd never had happen to me before until I was that age. So I was just like covered in lizard scales going to clubs and being like, hey, if anything happens and I have to take my pants off, she's going to see all this shit on my legs and I will be, you know, laughed out of the bedroom or whatever situation I get myself into. So that was like a huge concern. Obviously, when it came onto my arms and my hands, it was also like visible even when I was wearing clothing. So it was one of those ones where I got really focused on it. And, you know, it's also like a health problem as well. It's like something's happening to you for the first time and you're just like, what the fuck is this? How do I stop it? But yeah, then I had an outbreak in Australia, I remember. This was like a couple of years later, and I got laid with it. I had an outbreak, I had psoriasis, and I got laid, and the girl did not fucking mention it. The girl did not mention that I had lizard scales. I had I had a bad skin problem. It didn't come up. And if she saw it, maybe it freaked her out a little bit, but it didn't enough for us to have sex. And then later for us to have sex again. If it was a problem, I imagine we wouldn't have had sex for a second time. So yeah, it was one of those things where it was really big in my head when I was inexperienced and a lot more insecure. And even then it stayed with me. And then eventually just having sex with an outbreak made me feel less weird about it. Made me feel less bad about it. And now I have my treatment anyway, so I don't care. It's like it comes up, I'm like, oh, I'll just get the treatment cream. It'll be gone in like 6 or 7 days. Not a big deal. But I remember being like, this is like the end of the world when it first happened to me. The second insecurity I've got that did not affect me at all is something I think of a big one for certain men's self-improvement gurus. I've seen like whole funnels for products built around this. I've seen a lot of guys swear that this is important back in the day. Less so recently, I don't know what it is. Maybe we just live in a different era with this stuff. But my posture is fucking shite. My posture has always been shite. I am a long, lanky person. I have a rounded back, rounded shoulders. My neck kind of I have like that, you know, jutting out chin problem. I've been through different periods of my life where I've tried to fix this. I've got a few friends who have really done a good job fixing their posture. Like one in particular, Ravi, who's been on the channel before. He's like an iron rod on his back now these days, and he does like the powerlifting and stuff. And I've admired guys who either have great posture or who have fixed it. And when I was younger, I was definitely like obsessed with the idea of like, you know, getting my posture fixed, standing up straight. But I also attached it to the idea that this made me unattractive. That having this posture problem was a huge thing, and it really bugged me to the point where when I would walk around in like shopping centers or in street, like, you know, just down shopping streets and stuff, what do you fucking call it? Just down the high street is what we call it in the UK. And you would see I see my reflection in like mirrors and everything and in windows. And I would always see, oh fuck, how poor my posture was. And I'd always be like, oh, I gotta try and fix that. And this was like huge for me. Like every time I saw myself in a mirror, I was just like, oh, your posture sucks. And it was like one of those things where it was like a weird thing I had that I beat myself up about, because I wasn't doing much to try and correct it. I wasn't doing enough like the stretching, the exercises, etc. to try and correct it. But I was just beating myself about it all the time. I thought it made me like look like the Hunchback of Notre Dame or something. I thought it was a really, really big problem. But as I said, I never really like properly fixed it. I guess it got better the more I went to the gym a little bit, maybe from when I was a teenager and I just really was like slumped over. But no, I spent a decent chunk of my life probably looking not dissimilar to Randall from Recess in terms of posture. But I started dating. I started like putting myself out there. I started going on Tinder. I started like talking to girls when I was in my early 20s, like finally getting my virginity lost, getting success. Never seemed to be a problem. Like it never seemed to be an issue. Maybe because I'm already a bit taller anyway. But it just, I don't know, whatever reason, I've never seen my posture has been a massive impediment after I started getting laid. And it's amazing like how when you get laid with these things still being problems, they suddenly just don't become problems in your mind anymore. Because like you attached it to the idea of, oh, if this is an issue, it's stopping me from getting laid, and then you get laid, it kind of disproves how much of an issue it is. And I still to this day like do things now. I try to correct my shoulders because I've got pain, but a lot of it's more coming from like having back pain these days because I'm an old fuck. I'm like 31 now. But yeah, no, this is one of those ones that I vividly remember how obsessed I was about how bad my posture was and how I thought it was making me like an undesirable because of that. And then yeah, got laid and chilled out about it. Like it's one of those things. That's the basic like string with a lot of these stuff, and a lot of the stuff I see with other guys is they'll have these huge like specific insecurities, and then they'll meet a girl, or they'll meet a few girls, they'll start getting laid, they'll start having the success, they'll have they'll have presented themselves really well, they'll have like done themselves a really good job on Tinder or Hinge, they've like marketed themselves amazing, they dress a lot better, their vibe chills the fuck out, they act a lot better around women. And as these positives become like so positive, like any like minor negatives they're just suddenly not that much of an issue. When you have so much about yourself that is a positive, that stands out, these smaller things just start to not really matter. And so like just really focusing on these small insecurities to basically just the detriment of your mental health is, kind of silly. At least that's the way I feel about myself when I look back. I'm not trying to judge any of you, but I do look back on myself feeling like rather silly about how much this stuff kept me up at night and how much it just didn't end up having really any effect at all. I think it's in part because like I know now my goal is to be happy and to be the best of in the areas that I want to be good in, rather than just be like Omni-Man. That's the fucking name of the guy from Invincible, isn't it? I'm not trying to become like a godlike best at everything figure. I'm trying to do the things that I want to do, that I enjoy, and become good at those, and become like holistically a good person, and like good and decent in all the areas I need to be, and like maybe elite in the areas that I want to be elite in. But I'm not trying to become like, I don't know, like Giga Chad, Omni God level in everything. I think that is a dangerous road to go down for guys' mental health, or at least the way I've seen it. Like you become a lot happier going towards the stuff that's actually going to make you happy, is what I would say, and moving towards the stuff that you actually desire to be doing. Side rant. Kind of sums up the whole channel these days, to be honest. Final one. This is funny. This is my teeth, because I have very, very British teeth, and I'm fully aware of this. This is kind of a retrospective insecurity, because it's actually quite a recent insecurity, because after I started going on camera, that's when some of these started becoming a little bit more like obvious, like as in like I would get comments every now and again. We're not talking like a lot of comments, but like one in like 100 comments would be like, oh, you should get your teeth straightened or something like that. And I think part of it, maybe I grew up in the UK or whatever. I must have dated a lot of girls. I went out a lot in the rave scene and party scenes where everyone smokes, and I was smoking. It wasn't a huge deal to me ever until I started being on camera. But then I retrospectively looked back and I was like, well, it never impacted my dating results. Like I must have not run into enough girls who had like, I guess, an ick about like bad teeth or whatever. Or as I've said, I had more positives that overrode that preference, if girls had that preference. And also, I'm British, I probably got fucking away with it. My teeth were way more British about 5 years ago when I started going hard in Cold Approach, when I started going hard on Tinder and Hinge. I was smoking like a pack a day. I don't smoke anymore. And I wasn't taking good care of them. I was bunging around in hostels and not really taking good care of myself generally. So yeah, they were definitely on the chopping block for stuff that was like going downhill. And yeah, it didn't affect my results at all. And that's one of those ones. Again, that's another kind of sacred cow along with posture of like the things in like the looks maxing recommendations and the things that guys swear by. And maybe it is more important in America where like that thing is like put on more of a pedestal. But again, didn't affect me. Wasn't enough of a negative to have any effect on my results. It's only become something that I want to improve now that I'm on camera. Now that I get more people seeing me. It's something that I want to improve, to make the product on the camera better, not to get laid more, which is just like so far down priority these days. So you understand like the way these things work. This one, I just wanted to add this one in the end because I was like, I'm insecure about this now, but I wasn't insecure about this during dating. Why was that? And I thought it'd be an interesting one to talk about. So those are my 3 insecurities that I focused on or at different times and didn't really impact my dating results at all, especially in relation to how much fucking mental energy I put into worrying about them. Maybe you guys have your own versions of these. Maybe you're still holding on to some. I'm not saying all insecurities are like invalid and like some things aren't affecting you. I think I said that well enough at the beginning. Let me know in comments what you think about this video, and peace till next time.
If you've been wanting an amazing, awesome, elite sex life, tons of threesomes, plenty of wild adventures and great memories with awesome people, we would love to help you get there. Here's just a little bit of what our coaching clients have achieved in their time in the program. Renee had a threesome in just his second week of coaching, had a woman write him a love letter, and he went on to have sex with 12 women in just 12 weeks of coaching. Corky had his first threesome, slept with 7 amazing women, and made a ton of awesome memories with them. George and Power both had sex with 10 women each in their 12 weeks, had a bunch of wild adventures along the way. Join me and join them by clicking the coaching link in the description below.